Welcome to Therapy Explained, where we explain, demystify, and destigmatize mental health and mental health treatment. My name is Deniss. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and your very own mental health cheerleader. Today, we're going to be going over 5 conversations that you should have before you get married. Now, I work with couples on a very regular basis, and I also work with individuals. And when we do romantic relationship work, a lot of what comes up is that there's conversations that seem to have never happened, and there's clashes and tensions in relationships because you never discussed what your vision was for the relationship before you got married. And so today, to hopefully help you be a little bit more proactive with things that might cause tension in your relationship in the long run, today we're going to be talking about those conversations that should be important and should have been had before you walk down the aisle. Finances. You might already know, but one of the leading causes of divorce and separation in relationships is money. Money problems, money stress. It causes a lot of anxiety for the marriage when you are struggling financially. Now, depending on where you are and what your experience has been with money, i.e. financial trauma, make sure to check out that video if you're not familiar with the term or if you would like to learn more about it. But if you are each carrying your own financial trauma, it'll be really hard to be on the same page about how to manage that money, and having a conversation, a goal, a plan, a structure could be very helpful. Talking about your feelings about money can be super helpful in this situation. Being able to say, this is how I feel about spending money. This is what I think about my financial goals, or how, in the long run, I, want to make big time purchases, or in the short run, want to make small purchases throughout my day. I like to go shopping. Things that are important to me are traveling or having really good food and going to these really fancy restaurants to enjoy that kind of food. And so again, being able to have this conversation about what your values are around money, but also what your traumas are around money, can help the both of you be on the same page, or at the very least understand where you're at, so that slowly you can try to be on the same page as much as possible. And remember that, as with every conversation within a relationship, we want to come at this conversation knowing that we are a team. We're trying to make this work. So the question is, okay, where are you at? What's going on with you? What are your tools? What are your limits? And what are mine? What are my tools? What are my limits? What am I bringing into this? And how can we work together so that this can work smoothly? So it's helpful to talk about what your relationship is to money, what your feelings are about saving it, spending it, and what your history has been with it, so that you can both brainstorm what you want your financial goals to be in the long run. Parenting. Whether or not you want to have children is probably one of the most important conversations that you should also be having. Again, that's the first step. Do you want kids? Do you not want kids? And that could be a make it or break it for most relationships. If you decide that you both want to have children, then the next question is, okay, so when do you want to have children? And how do you want to have children? Do you want to adopt? Do you want to try to get pregnant? Do we want to foster? What kind of parenting or parents do we see ourselves being? The next question is also, what kind of parent do you want to be? And along with that comes, what kind of values do you want to pass down to our children? What is important for you that our children learn or know or feel about the world and other people? Knowing how your partner and you view yourselves or would like to view yourselves as a parent is very important. We need to make sure that we're on the same page, and that overall, about 80 to 90% we are in agreement about 80 to 90% of what we want. Do you want to be an authoritative parent? How do you see consequences versus punishment in raising children? What are those things that we are going to practice as parents? And really, at the end of the day, also, what does it mean to be a good parent? Because I know that we might be able to answer this question and just say, I want to be a good, loving parent. But what does that mean? What is a good, loving parent? Do you want to be present? Do you want to take them out to trips? Do you want to make sure that they learn different languages? And again, this will be in connection to that one of those first questions, which is, what values do you want to pass down to the children? And that will also help you start that more detailed conversation about specifically what that is, right? So if you want a value of social service and community, then maybe making sure that you're engaging your children in some of those behaviors very early on, or modeling those behaviors very early on, might be part of your parenting style. So again, parenting is a great conversation to have, of one of the many that we're covering here today, that you should be having with your partner, so that you know whether or not you're on the same page, and if not, how to get there. Marriage roles. So you've agreed you want to spend the rest of your lives together, you want to get married, and the question is, okay, what does that mean? What does that mean to us to be married? And it doesn't necessarily have to mean, well, we're in a monogamous, loving relationship forever and ever. It might also mean we are just particularly committed to one another and are choosing to practice polyamory or have an open marriage. So again, being on the same page about what being married means to each of you is important. You've probably already had some form of this conversation anyway, if you're here watching this video, or have already established the kind of relationship that you want at this point. However, it is still important to make sure that as you take this big leap, you're still on the same page. From there, the next question is, okay, what does it mean to you to be a wife or a husband? What does that mean in terms of your dedication and commitment to the other person, but also your role within the house? Are you splitting chores? Are you splitting finances? Or are you working together to figure out how much can you give and how much can you give? Are we going to be flexible? Are we not? What is that going to look like? What does that mean? What are the responsibilities of each of you to that particular home that you're now trying to build? Lifestyle. Talking about the kind of life that you want to have with one another is also important. What do you want to do with your free time? What are some of your dreams and hopes as a couple, as a married couple? Do you want to travel the world? Do you want to read books on your spare time? Do you want to go into nature or take classes together, or also spend some time apart? How do you see your life together forming? And how do you also see maybe some of those moments apart happening? How often are you comfortable spending time away from each other? Or how often do you need that for yourself? So what does that look like? And yeah, to some degree, the way that it has been up to now, it's probably a good example of what it's going to look like or feel like after marriage. So you most likely have a general idea, but if there is something that you want to add or change, again, it's important to talk about it and make sure that those expectations are set in place. Again, what do you want the actual marriage, the day-to-day, to look like? And retirement. This is a long ways away. I know, especially when we talk about just getting married, to go way up to the other end of our careers and talk about what's going to happen near the end. What do you see that looking like? We tend to forget that. I know it sounds like it's forever away from now, and yeah, it'll take some time to get there, but it's still important to be on the same page, because another thing that we see actually is that those are usually the points in which people tend to feel like they've drifted apart. And if you've chosen to have children, that is another big point in which a marriage can change, because couples tend to be so focused on parenting and taking care of their children that once they're at the other end of having raised those kids, or even further when they're ready to retire, you notice that you want different things and that those things have changed. But having a conversation about it first now can help us have a better idea of where we're headed and prompt us to have a conversation with one another if that changes at any time throughout the marriage. So retirement is an important conversation. How do you see yourself spending retirement? If one of you wants to move to a different country and retire there, but you want to stay maybe closer to friends and family, That's probably an important conversation to have. So again, how do you see your retirement going? Do you plan on getting retired? And this might even be in connection to your conversation about finances. Is retirement something that we see ourselves being able to afford? And if not, how are we going to support one another to make sure that it's something that we can, or to try to make use of some resources to help ourselves, our marriage, and our life together once we're retired? And so another mini conversation along with retirement is, how do you see our lives after children? If we've talked about having children, when do we want to have them? And how old are we going to be by the time they move out? And how do you then see our lives together? Do you want to maybe perhaps get a second career, do a career change, move? A lot can happen between now and then, but again, having a general idea of where you're headed can help you know that you're headed the same direction, and again, prompt you to talk to one another if that starts to change. So being able to say, you know what, actually I'm having a different dream now, let me talk to my partner about this. Some of these conversations might feel second nature to you, and a lot of the way that your relationship has been now is most likely the way that it's going to be after marriage. Marriage actually changes very little in a relationship. It's a really romantic, wonderful point in a relationship, and it's very meaningful. Having gone through that process myself, yes, I can say it's wonderful, and I highly recommend it with the right person. When we have conversations about what our expectations are down the line, it can help iron out some of those kinks and bumps that we might run into in the marriage down the road. It doesn't mean that after these conversations, marriage is just going to be easy peasy, because marriage is work, but these conversations help it be not painful and not hard, just work. So again, if you haven't had any of these conversations, I encourage you to have them. It will help the relationship in the long run. I hope that this video was a good start for you to brainstorm some of the conversations that you want to have, even if you're just thinking, oh, maybe I want to marry this person. These conversations could be helpful for you to filter out, decide, maybe even make it concrete that yes, this is the person you want to spend the rest of your life with. If you did find it helpful, make sure to give it a thumbs up so that I know what kind of videos are helpful for you. Leave a comment down below if you so please. Again, I have really appreciated how vulnerable some of you have been in the comment section, and your encouragement as well. It means a lot to me to know that I have been helpful, at least in some very small way in your life. That's what I aim to do here anyway. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I'll see you in the next one, and remember, as always, I'm cheering for you.